Hello and welcome to the MAN Fleet Management training video for telematics reports, also known as MAN EcoStyle reports. Hopefully you can see on your screen our website, which is accessible via the URL manfleetmanagement.co.uk. So if you key that into your browser, this website's quite a useful way of knowing what we're about in fleet management, really, in terms of you could download a brochure, you can watch videos, case study videos about what our customers say about us. You can watch or read about features and benefits. But for the purposes of today's training session, we're actually going to log into the system to show you how to run reports. So by clicking the login button, we get to the login options. I'm going to log into the EcoStyle reporting, which is here. And the first thing it will ask us is for a company name. So I'm going to use Bibby Distributions data because we've got permission to use their data for the purposes of today. I'm going to log into the Bibby environment, key in my username and password. And that should take me to our web portal. So as you can see, it's positioned me on the map view for the Bibby environment. I'm going to click on reports, top there, which will take me to quite a nicely laid out menu structure. So we can see we've got a menu on the left showing how well our vehicles have been utilised in terms of journey summaries, locations, utilisation summaries, etc. In the middle, it's all about vehicle performance, so how safe and how economically my vehicle's been driven. And any other information that might be of interest is shown in the menu on the right. Now, I'm not going to run every one of these reports. They all work in a similar fashion. So essentially, if you know how to run one, you can run them all. I'm going to start, though, by looking at something called a fleet stats report. So if I key or hover over that option on the menu, it will take me to the report parameters. So reports can typically be run for a date period. So if I drop this down, you can see I've got an option of yesterday, today, last week, last month, etc. I'm going to select last week because that's quite a common date range for our customers to run their reports over. That will actually change the start and end dates for me. I can then just pick which group I want to run the report over. Now, if I wanted all of Bibby, that would be quite a lengthy report, would be about 1,000 vehicles. So I'm just going to pick a particular depot called Blenheim. So let's run that one. Now, I could at this stage, if I wanted to, subscribe to the report, and many of our customers actually would, rather than run reports on the fly and have to wait for them to run, they would subscribe. So as you can see here, it's asking us for an alias, which is just the name we want to give it. I could actually key in my email address, for example. I could say, give it a subject that's going to come on the email. So let's call it whatever test report. I can schedule the report to be daily, weekly, monthly, etc. I can select, is it going to come as a PDF or Excel file? I would recommend you probably use PDF. When do you want to start it running from? When do you want what sort of time of the day do you want it to be delivered? Is there a time that you want it to end? So you might only want this report to run for 3 months or 6 months or however long you're going to keep the vehicle. And then you can actually just save subscription. And on doing that, that would then deliver that report to you automatically as a PDF attachment to your inbox on whatever basis, daily, weekly, monthly, etc. you've scheduled it to be run. So quite a useful way of getting your data without having to log in and remember passwords and wait while reports run. But for the purposes of today, for the training video, I'm actually going to run this report for last week for this depot. I'm going to just click open report, which will actually run that report on the fly. So we'll just wait a few seconds. As you can see, that not too long to wait for that report. For the week in question, which is last week, it's given us 39 vehicles that are reported into the Blenheim group. We can see on this report that it shows us the vehicle utilization. So that's how many hours, minutes, seconds that fleet's been running for. It gives us average per vehicle, so 43 hours per vehicle, 5 minutes. Tells us that on average, that's on a 24/7 week, that's 25.65% utilized. So that tells me straight away that this is a single shifted fleet. Within that, we've got driving time, we've got idling time, so again, very creditable there, about 0.5% idling, which is really good. And we've also got standing time. We can see for the fleet the distance travelled in miles, the average per vehicle, how much fuel has been used, and what the average fuel consumption for each vehicle is, and also the carbon emissions, which is quite good. And we've also then got each and every vehicle listed in terms of its distance travelled, what type of vehicle it is, its maximum speed, its MPG, and all the behavioural stuff over here, which we're trying to sort of improve the drivers on, things like idling times, how much it's been driven with the foot hard down, the accelerator hard down to the floor, how much time we've been in the green band, how much coasting, how many harsh brakes per hour, over revs per hour. But all of this kind of information, to be honest, is portrayed more successfully really in our ATG reports, which we'll go on to now. If I wanted to save this report so I could email it or print it, then I could export it. So click on the export button. I would recommend PDF. So you click PDF and it would ask you for a location and a name for the report, which would then obviously save it within that particular folder. Don't particularly want to do that now, so I'm just going to delete that. Let's delete that. Go back into Bibby and reports. I'm now going to show you what the ATG reports look like. So if I go into the 141 group summary, also known as a league table report, again works in a very similar way to the fleet stats. So I've got a date range to select. Let's be consistent, stick with last week. I can run the report just on fuel parameters or safety parameters or both. So let's leave it as combined. I can omit the vehicles that have only done a few miles, for example, if they're going to corrupt the report, but we'll leave them all for the time being. Now, it does make most sense, really, to run this report as a driver report because it's really driver behaviour that we're trying to improve. But I don't really want to name and shame individual drivers in a training video, so I'm deliberately going to change this to be a vehicle report. Vehicle. Again, I could run it for the whole fleet or just a particular depot. So let's be consistent and select the Blenheim depot. And again, I could subscribe to the report to get it weekly or monthly or whatever, but I'm just going to run it for the purposes of today on the fly. Now this will take a little bit longer to run, maybe 20, 30 seconds or so. Better, not so much. And as you can see, this is a much nicer report in terms of the way it's portrayed. It shows the behaviour in terms of an A to G rating. We can see that this particular group is very well driven. It's an A standard overall, that's exemplary. We can see on the header again the engine run hours, minutes and seconds, how much of that's driving time, how many miles has the fleet covered, what's the MPG. We've got the group average on the top line, so as a whole the vehicles are driven to an A standard. But the only areas where they fall below the A standard is on over revving and harsh braking. And then we've got, if we go down, each and every vehicle in a league table, just like a football league table. So we've got the best vehicle at the top, or driver as it would be if you run it by driver, and the worst at the bottom. In fact, even the worst vehicle on this report is even a B standard, so it's a very well driven fleet. Again, we've got individual grades for coasting, over revving, green band driving, engine idling, etc., etc. We've got the MPG of the individual vehicle concerned. And another useful feature here actually is the torque. If you look at the torque, that will give you an indication as to how hard the vehicle's been working. So if you see two vehicles that have a similar grade, but one's got a different or a better fuel consumption than the other one, you'll probably find it's down to the engine torque, which is symptomatic really of the load, the terrain, the weather conditions. So what we generally say is under 20% torque is light or lightly loaded, 20 to 30 is average, over 30 is heavy. So we can see here, for example, that we've got a vehicle that has been driven best of all, top of the league, but he's only achieved 9.77 miles per gallon because the engine torque is high. Whereas if we look down here, we've got one where it's still an A-grade vehicle, but a much better fuel return of over 11 to the gallon, because you can see the engine torque is lower, so the vehicle's probably more lightly laden, or maybe even operating in an easier terrain to drive in. Okay, if we go towards the bottom of the league table so that we've got some infringements to look at on the next report. I can actually drill through this report. So if I hover over a vehicle or a driver, it becomes a hotspot. I can then click on that and actually run the 142 report or the driver vehicle summary report. If you want to give performance reports out to your individual drivers, this is a very good report to run. You can run straight from the menu and the reports to the driver with a view to helping him to improve. So here we have a B grade vehicle. This is the registration number in an A fleet. Again, you've got all the individual stats for that vehicle in terms of engine runtime, fuel consumption, etc., and torque, and all the individual behaviours. So for coasting, over revving, we've got the actual grade or score for that driver. We've got the fuel consumption down here, and for the worst two features, it gives us a little tip as to how we might improve. So the worst two features are harsh braking, which you can see as a D, and coasting, which you can see as a C. So it gives us a little tip as to how the driver might improve those features. And then on page 2, we've got all of the infringement detail. So we can see from above that we've got some harsh braking and engine idling going on. For each activity or each infringement, we've got the date and time, we've got the location, and how much time that was done. So we've got 2 minutes of idling there, 3 minutes of idling there, for example. So let's say I wanted to take the driver to task on this 7 minutes of idling and he contested it. I could actually go to a hotspot there and take me to a Google map for that location. I can actually, if I wanted to, pull my little man down. Okay, let's get rid of all this. I can pull my little man down to the location in question. Yeah, and I can see exactly where the infringement took place. Try that once again. Okay, so again, if the driver contests, you can say, well, do you remember when you were at this location last Wednesday at 2:30? You were idling there for 7 minutes, whatever. It just gives you a lot more credibility, really, that the data does support all the information that's on the reports. Okay, as I say, I'm not going to run every report. I think you get a good idea as to how the reports are run now. If you need any further information about the reports, please feel free to contact either your salesman or your FMS account manager, and I'm sure we can arrange a visit if required to give you more training and more information. I hope that's been useful, and goodbye from me.